Hi, and welcome to another episode of Conversation with a Chef. I'm Jo Ritty, and I love sharing with you the conversations I get to have with talented and passionate chefs. It's the backstory, if you will, to the food they're putting up. I begin today by acknowledging the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation, traditional custodians of the unceded land where this conversation takes place, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. It's not every day you get to have a chat in a former ship's chandlery from the 1860s, but that's exactly where I found myself with Dan Livingstone, chef, self-taught cook, ex-pop songwriter and co-owner of the Chandlery in Port Melbourne. I first met Dan at one of his collaborative events a few weeks ago, a night of incredible wine, thoughtful food and genuine connection. In this episode, we talk about how his creative path led from music studios to fire-fueled kitchens, the philosophy behind zero-waste catering, and how vegetables cooked over flames can be just as thrilling as meat. We also talk about the realities of running events, building community, and finding meaning in the stories behind every ingredient. Dan's approach is generous, grounded, and deeply human. And it all starts here, with the history-soaked bluestone walls of the Chandlery.
Yeah.
Well, it's lovely to be here, Dan. I did speak to you, of course, on the night I came, which was a few weeks ago now.
Yeah.
And it was so good. It was such a, a fun night. Obviously it was about the wines, but the food was and is delicious.
Thank you.
And I really loved listening to you talk about the way you approach food and your philosophy as well. So it'd be great to talk about that. But maybe let's situate ourselves in the. Do you say Chandlery? How are you?
Yeah, it's probably Chandlery. We call it the Chandlery.
Chandlery.
We're not sea folk, so we're not sure exactly how best to pronounce it, but the Chandlery seems to work well.
I'm going to hold mine.
Nothing happens.
But this was a chandlery, was it?
Yeah, so this was a ship's chandlery. We dated it back to the 1860s, which still has its original bluestone. So when we arrived at a place of wanting to get our own venue as caterers, we had a look around and we were Port Melbourne locals. So we chanced upon this space being for lease, and we're aware of it already. It's been had various iterations of restaurant for a number of years, and it's a tricky place to do business as a restaurant, and I think that given its size, it's struggled. So we decided, hey, this could work really well as an event space. And when we decided to jump into it and use it as an event space and the base for our catering, we did some research. We went to the Port Melbourne Historical Society at the town hall and had some chats with them, and they were able to be super helpful and unearth a number of interesting photography pieces and bits of history on the building and what it's been through. So it's got a bit of a storied history. It was essentially a wine bar 100 or so years ago, 120 years ago, or whatever a wine bar might have been back then. I think it was just red or white.
Yeah.
There wouldn't have been too much option, but it was a pretty busy and raucous space, tending to the marine industry, which is right here next to us on the docks. So we discovered a number of articles about fights that have gone on and interesting characters who've run the space. And even as lately as the 60s, it was home to a prominent restaurateur who was kind of doing flashy food. It was kind of seen upon, who also owned, what's the big space up in the Dandenongs that Shannon Bennett had for a while? Oh. It'll come to me. But so we just thought this is really interesting. Let's lean into the history. Let's go back and call it the Chandlery and, kind of embrace what we're all about, which is connectivity, community, and consider its history as this kind of port where people arrived and started their lives in Melbourne.
Yeah. And so you do catering and welcome events here.
Yes.
How often is that happening?
Yeah, so we do our catering from here, which is predominantly off-site as a business called Muse Events that my wife Fran and I have. And that's been going on for about 8 years now together. But we also have this space as a standalone venue called the Chandlery. So a similar sets of food, the same kitchen essentially. But we wanted to have a standalone events venue where we could walk out 5 metres from our kitchen and put a plate of food down rather than drive 2 hours, which is our usual, type of setting.
Yeah.
So, it's been fun. It's great to be it in a standalone bricks and mortar business as a catering company, and test ourselves, and have enjoyed it so far.
So do people come in with their events, like for example, a winemaker or whoever else, and do you sit down and discuss the menu, or do you already have your menu that's in place?
Yeah, so look, it depends. We have just a default offering which we have for small micro weddings or birthday parties, engagements and so on. But yeah, through winter especially, we've really embraced trying to connect and collaborate with others in the industry, especially shining a light on smaller scale producers, winemakers, and those who are kind of seen as the small guys. And I find that a really enjoyable experience, and it doesn't come with a set template. We'll often just have a really organic discussion about what we might want to put out and show people, and then we'll allow it to go from there. So we do have a set events type that we've been rolling out for the last 2 years, which we've called the Makers Table, and that's just been an opportunity to connect with really small scale, either farmers, producers of wine, distillers, and give them a platform to come in and showcase what their product is, and with us supporting it, I guess, on the kitchen side. So we try not to throw our weight around too much, and actually allow for those small-scale producers to inform what we're doing on those nights.
And how do you get in touch with them, or do they get in touch with you? Yeah,
well, it's been a bit of an organic process, often of me reaching out to people. So my background in this industry is one that's a little bit left of centre. I was a professional singer in my 20s and songwriter. I was a pop songwriter and producer. So I fell into cooking at the end of my 20s when I met Fran, who had an events and catering business. So I didn't really come with this set of network and colleagues who I could kind of lean in on and contact. So I very much, as a kind of self-taught cook, reached out to others, and expressed my interest. Often come out and said, let me jump in and lend a hand and volunteer. And that's kind of given a bit of goodwill over to allow some trust and to connect with, suppliers that I might not easily have been able to access being a small business myself. Yeah.
Right. This is fascinating.
Yeah, it's a bit different.
And so what was the crossover into food? What sparked that?
Yeah, so I spent my 20s singing here and in the US and Europe in a number of different settings. I started as a jazz singer as a teenager and then merged into pop music because jazz didn't pay so well.
Yeah.
And then for a lot of my 20s spent time as a songwriter, so jumping into studio sessions and performing and recording songs with publishing companies.
Wow.
So, and that's all good fun, and it's funny because it kind of, you express and you test the same muscles as cooking as music. So I feel like my cooking career started before it started in some ways.
Okay.
Because writing music, you're kind of considering elements and textures and how people feel, and so I feel like there's been a lot of crossover. So I met my wife Fran, at a time when writing pop music, getting into sessions, as fun as it was, I felt like I'd lost a bit of a sense of myself through it, and I wasn't really kind of, I wasn't feeling like I was able to inject my true self into what I was doing. So I took a bit of a break at a time where Fran needed a hand with cooking. Cooking for me had always been something, up until that point, I used as a de-stress after writing music. So I'd often get home from writing a pop music song with this thunderous bass beat in my head, and I just wanted to have a break. And my way of switching off would be, just getting in the kitchen and having a cook, or reading cookbooks and emulating dishes. So at a time when Fran needed a hand, I kind of put my hand up and said, I'd love to just take a break from music altogether and just jump in. And at the time, it was pretty basic kind of offering that she had attached to the small events business she had. So I kind of began just cooking, sausage rolls and some pretty basic things. And eventually, as I just threw myself more and more into it, I realised that actually I could kind of see myself doing this just full time.
Wow. So
I put the pause on writing music at least. I continued to perform for the last, up until about 3 years ago. While I learned how to cook. But yeah, I just found it was a pretty seamless thing to transition into in terms of a skill set of trying to be creative, connect with people. And I still even think about when I make food, I think in terms of music terms, bass notes and treble notes and things. You think about like a vinegar or an acid being a treble note and a bass being, something savoury, umami. So it's a bit of a funny thing how I don't feel like it's been a tremendously different jump of skill sets.
That's really interesting, and I wonder, where does technique fit into that? Because you mentioned creativity, and for sure, cooking's about creativity and palate and all of those things, and being really aware and observational. What was it easy to take on board technique as well?
Yeah, that was certainly something that I had to work at, and I took my time. I was really honest with myself, and there were many conversations about, I'd like to jump in and do some stagiaire work in kitchens to strengthen things, but I found myself in fortunate positions where we'd connect with various chefs of 10, 20 years experience and collaborate, and I'd get advice, reach out to people, and a lot of generous people in the industry were able to kind of aid me in putting me in the right directions of books to read and areas to work on. And so I slowly but surely just honed in on some of those those more discipline-based things required for technique. And it's still a journey. In a lot of ways I wish I'd had the chance to start off with a proper kind of 3 years working in a school and doing an apprenticeship, but this is where I've found myself. And so I've just kind of I work hard to just lean into the fact that it's a bit unorthodox my beginning with it, but use that to my advantage in some ways where I don't necessarily have the parameters that a classically trained chef might have, but I've still got those people around me who've been able to kind of lead me in good directions.
And I guess when you come at something a bit later in life, or when you're older and you've got other experiences, you kind of are more aware of what you want to know or need to know to do what you're doing. So then I think you really hone in on those things. And I like to hear that you use books. And continuing to learn, as you said you're doing, would you do you look at what other chefs are doing on Instagram and YouTube as well, or is it more in the flesh?
Certainly. I try and be a sponge across everything.
Yeah.
Obviously being careful to not get too lost in absolutely everything you see, and kind of have a critical lens when you see how people are going about things, because there's plenty of people doing things in odd ways or not necessarily the right ways. Not that there is a wrong and a right way, but I've tended to look to some of the more classic-based chefs, for either inspiration or some technique-based stuff. So Adam Byatt from Trinity in London, he's got some great YouTube videos which I really enjoy, and a number of others that, I certainly do jump online and get stuck into that. I think you do have to be very careful, though, that you don't allow yourself to, start negative talk by seeing all of the perfectly curated stuff online and allow it to second-guess, how you go about things. I think you've got to cook with instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And comparison is the thief of joy, which I think we find that social media can really take us down that track. But that's right. If you can keep to the inspiration and have your own confidence, then it can be a useful tool, I think.
Yeah, certainly. And I think, look, for me, the purpose or the reason I enjoy cooking is not for the want of any vacuous, selfish reasons. I've tended to do it from a place of just wanting to bring people together and have connection. I don't feel like that's as view-reaching online as more exciting content is, So in that way, I struggle with social media a bit because I often feel like it's not really celebrating the things that I want to celebrate about food.
And it's good, because food originally was all about bringing people together, and still is, but, community and sharing across a table is really what hospitality or food is all about. So I think that's really lovely that you've tapped into that and created a space for people to come as well.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one, though, just in terms of social media. I don't know, how do you feel about social media and its place these days? Is it in a healthy spot? I guess it's what you go in and look for. And if you seek out things that are going to piss you off or frustrate you, or that are going to feel self-serving, you'll find them. And if you go in search of inspiration and people doing great things and forwarding cuisine, it's there as well.
That's right. I feel lucky. I think my algorithm is quite a positive one in terms of following the chefs and restaurants that I really admire, and
Yep.
so I feel like I'm seeing good things. And some other food writers that I really admire. I like to follow them, and they pop up and so on. It's like I'm a lot older than probably the demographic that really gets into social media, so I guess for me. It serves my purpose.
Yeah,
And I don't really know how to use it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed downstairs as we were coming in that you've got some big jars of preserves and pickles and those kinds of things. And I remember you talking about how important it is for you to use everything and to have zero waste.
Yes.
Perhaps you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah. Look, it's become a bit of a buzzword, sustainability, and can often be thrown around without, without deeper thought and actual execution of it. But we've tried to be very considerate about what our industry is known for and how it's regarded. And I feel like catering's kind of seen as, even the word is a bit of a dirty word, it's seen as a bit of a second-class citizen to restaurant cooking. And I'm very much keen to try and change that. And I think changing that isn't necessarily just about food tasting great and being contemporary. It's about the processes and methods that underpin what you're doing. And a big reputational issue with catering is wastage, and deservedly so. It can be pretty heavy how easily waste can be generated in the catering space, especially with big events and things like that. And a lot of that stems from people just trying to be quite generic and please the masses in terms of not really thinking about the seasons and just putting on a Dutch carrot and an eye fillet and a mash because that's what people expect at an event. And we're really excited about where food comes from and the people who make it. And so if you are connecting with where your food's coming from, and if you're connecting with how it's grown and the effort it takes to get there, then you just naturally respect the product. And you want to really work with that because it's the most exciting, for me, it's the most exciting part about cooking is actually not necessarily always the cooking itself, but it's the opportunity to go out and see these hyper-seasonal things being grown by super passionate farmers and producers and hear about the lengths that they go to make that happen and all of the challenges they come across. So it's just a natural progression to, once you've seen that, and you've heard the stories of how much sacrifice and hard work goes into making, a new season potato or a winter, daikon, heirloom daikon. You get it into your kitchen and you don't want to put any of it to waste, and you want to take care of it and celebrate it, and do the bare minimum in terms of taking it from its bare essence to the plate. So for us, it just we started thinking about all the ways that we could preserve things at their best, and looked into a number of different techniques. So for us, the primary ones are obviously just straight fermentation via salt. But also from there, we discovered chongs and being able to make sugar syrups from almost any product. And that's led us into creating vinegars, macerating various things, all the way through to lately we use barley koji to create kojis that then flavour sauces and help with marinating meats. And it's just, this is part of why I love cooking, is there's so much to learn and there's so much out there to discover. You don't get bored. And having the parameters of going, I can't waste any of this, gives you that ability to have a tunnel of creativity, which I really enjoy.
I am always impressed when I hear how chefs use the peelings and the lemon skins and all of those kinds of things in other ways. And I think, we could all do with learning a bit more about that. But also allowing for that time. I had a really lovely conversation with Shay up in the Dandenongs, and embarrassingly for me, I hadn't realised really what soy sauce was, how it was made. And they say it's made with soybean water, purified water, salt and thyme, and it takes 2 years until it's ready. And I just that to me was so groundbreaking, because I was thinking, gosh, you know, when you go to the supermarket and there's all these different soy sauces and I just kind of like splash it about when I'm doing it. I think, gosh, when you've got a product and you know how much time and effort's gone into it, then you do use things really wisely. But that's really incredible that you can make this product from
certainly
that.
Yeah, and it's that thing of multiple products becoming the greater the sum of their parts.
Yeah.
And I think fermentation can do that, and preservation. And I just think inherently it's the that effort and that show of love in putting that effort into preserving something is just it's just a good thing to do. And it comes out, and you know, we talk about kind of, you know, when you love your cooking or you love people, it comes out in the food. For me, that's kind of that ultimate addition to that process is, hey, let's not waste this beautiful thing that, you know, Matt and Joe, my friends, might have, you know, pulled from the garden, or whoever it is, but let's celebrate it, and that's going to flow on to the final dish. And even the process, and even you know, whether it be taking you know, lemon peels and making a cleaning agent or whatever it is, it might not necessarily end on the dish. It just contributes to, in, you know, sometimes tough industry and hard work, a sense of joy and pride that you can have in what you do.
How great are Matt and Joe? I had such a lovely conversation with them. We walked around their what are we calling them? Fields?
Yeah, farm. Yeah,
their farm. And it was just and it was really interesting speaking to a chef who had crossed over to being a producer and growing. And yeah, I think that's incredible, the amount of work they're doing with heirloom and
absolutely,
and cooking, growing all those great.
They're a standout for me. Joe in particular, well, Matt just works so hard it's hard to get him to stop. But
that's right.
But Joe has
always
been
off foraging.
So generous with her time with me.
Oh, nice,
and,
good.
And probably was, you know, one of the main people who kick-started my real want to connect with small-scale producers because of her enthusiasm and passion for what she does. So we're doing a morel dinner next month with them here.
Oh, all right.
So you'll have to come down.
I will.
Please be my guest for that one.
Oh, thank you. I would come anyway. I love them, and then also mushrooms.
Yeah. Well, so it's not just about the act of growing heirloom vegetables and the hard work and stuff, but I just love being out in the fresh air, and you know, you head down to their farm in Romsey and you see kangaroos hopping past and the birds, and I just love that, and I love it more and more. And it's part of why, so for our catering company, we predominantly use custom grills and wood-fire grills, and we head out and cook for, often these days, a lot of weddings.
Amazing.
Vineyards and farms, and I love that feeling of no day being the same, and kind of the challenge of cooking not being the same, when the wind's going this way and the rain's going that way, or it's a hot day or whatever it is. It just drives my passion for doing it outdoors. For some reason, it just elevates the cooking and eating experience, as far as I'm concerned, being out in the elements. So, I'm keen to do more of it. Essentially, you know, and it's hard in Melbourne with the weather that we have, but I just think that it just kind of just adds another level of joy when you sit down with friends and family and have a meal outside. You know, even if the weather's crap, you know, put up an umbrella and, you know, have a little bit extra wine to stay warm. You know, it's a good time.
That's right. I've just been, I'm reading Stanley Tucci's book, and the way that he talks about food's amazing. And, you know, he's not a chef, but he's a really good cook and really appreciates food. And he has these great descriptions of a father-in-law. You know, they get in the boat, and they're in Maine, they'll get in the boat and they go out to this particular, first of all, they go to the fisherman and get the crayfish, the lobsters, and then they go to this island and then light a fire, and there's this particular way he does it with putting, you know, seaweed over it. I'm just like, I want to go to that. It sounds amazing. I'd love to be part of that.
Absolutely.
And I wonder, New Zealand pre-COVID, I don't know if it happens now, I should investigate that, but near Christchurch, where I used to live, there's this amazing vineyard area and also really great growing area, and they'd get together this team of, a collection of producers, chefs, winemakers and food writers, and they all converged on this vineyard, which was kind of in the middle of, you know, nothing's that far on the South Island. So they had one team would go off foraging, you know, greens and mushrooms or whatever they were doing. another team would go to the river and catch trout, and another team would go and hunt and get goat or
Amazing.
boar or whatever. And then they'd all come together and celebrate and feast together. So I think maybe one day was spent doing that, and then the next day they came together and prepared it all and
Yep, incredible.
ate together. And I just thought that would be, for me, the ultimate, like it would be a dream come true to be part of that.
Absolutely. I think Rene Redzepi did a similar thing where he invites a number of chefs over to Copenhagen, and they do a thing of foraging and, something that they go and do the fishing. And yeah, it's a great way to celebrate everything that's in front of you. And
I'm sure we could do it. To a level, to a degree.
100%. And there's a number of people who, leading the charge in terms of shining a light on why hunting and meat sustainability with, pest control is a healthy thing. It's something that I've gotten involved in over the last couple of years. I kind of hit a place where, so before we were at the Chandlery, we were predominantly doing catering out of the Middle Park Bowls Club, which is a great bowls club here in the southern part of Melbourne. And we were doing a lot of meat, so a lot of kind of barbecue style smoking. We weren't doing American barbecue, but we'd utilise big American smokers. And some days we do, 2,000, 3,000 people through summer. It started to weigh on me how much meat I was cooking and how detached I was from the process of where it was coming from.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And I really felt like I had to face up to that and just at least, become familiar with where meat's coming from in the process. So it's been a really important journey for me as a cook, I guess, and a chef, just to get an understanding for, mass industrialised meat production and try and shine a light on the smaller guys. And I'm really still only just connecting with some of these producers. But there's a number of people really trying to do things the right way, and have a higher welfare raising of meat. Or, go down the route of Anthony, who does venison work in the Otways. Just try and find ways to source meat more sustainably. And for me, that became learning how to hunt and actually, coming to grips with taking a life and facing up to what it means to eat meat, setting that square in the face.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of work being done. And I don't know if you're aware of the Jonai farm in Daylesford. No. And Tammy, who's currently at work creating a micro abattoir on their farm. But it's really hard for small-scale farmers to take their animals to market. So there are two big players who are currently blocking out smaller-scale farmers from being able to process their meat. So there's a few people, and I'm not the one to talk to about this because I'm still in my infancy of getting to know the industry. But yeah, there's a few people who are starting to fight that and try and make sure that people are getting the chance to eat meat that's local to them and raised humanely and is dispatched humanely.
Yeah.
I'm very keen to continue to look for those sustainable options because it's pretty easy to just turn your eyes to it and just order from the markets, and even the great markets in Melbourne are often just supplied with some pretty industrialised stuff. So this is all part of my grappling with the industry of catering and the battle between trying to handle my margins and make sure that I can keep my staff paid and the lights on, but also sleep comfortably at night knowing I'm doing my absolute best to provide the best possible product.
Well, it's about respect, isn't it? And you mentioned that with the vegetables, that when you've seen how the effort it takes to grow, carrots and peas and all those kinds of things, then you're less likely to waste those. You want to use the whole vegetable. It's the same with the respecting the meat that you're cooking.
Yeah.
A long time ago, when I first came to Melbourne in 2011, so possibly 2012, I went on a weekend run by a guy called Rowan Anderson. I'm not sure if you know him. And he was very much about getting city folks in touch with and more aware of the meat that they were eating. It was the best weekend. We first of all made a pesto out of dandelions, which was incredible.
Awesome.
And made bread and pizzas and things. And then we had to dispatch a chicken, which was a loss of innocence, I have to say. But then we had to cook the whole thing and learn how to butcher it and do all that kind of thing.
Yep.
Get rid of the cloaca bit, all of that scary stuff. And it was so confronting, but it really made me look at chickens differently. We also learned how to skin rabbits, but he'd already he
Shot
had
them,
he had a
yeah.
stash of
Yeah.
those, and also cooked those, and we used the whole animal and all of that. And I think it is. I don't want to say it's good to do, but I think that it's important in terms of awareness for
Yeah.
sure, and respect.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, it's not easy, you know, and I don't. It's not for everyone, but I do think if you freely eat meat all the time, it's a healthy thing as a human to face up to it, and if not, learn how to hunt yourself or be involved in an experience like that. At least discuss it with someone who does it.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. And what's your current favourite thing to cook?
That's a funny one. At the moment, it's actually cooking vegetables over a fire is something really special, and a lot of people just presume that if you cook, and we cook very large pieces of meat over fire, and it's that real kind of butch thing and primal thing. But actually, learning how to cook vegetables and kind of coax out the best of their flavour on fire is a lot of fun. So I've really enjoyed getting in super fresh vegetables, and more from people that I know, and cooking them over fire. So we'll often, cook radishes on the coals and various things like that. Other than that, we've also been, really enjoying doing some pretty old school traditional style cooking. So creating farces and stuffing, doing ballotines, embracing that kind of nose to tail style eating by using up everything that we can. Another area is trying to, as everyone knows who's in the industry, you've got to watch your costs and try and get the most out of everything. So coming up with techniques which enable you to create really special flavours without the price tag. So, for example, duck confit, we get really good quality duck ribs, and we're able to confit them much like you would a duck leg, and strip that, and you've got incredible duck meat for half the price of a duck leg.
Yeah,
so it's finding those little cheat codes to delicious things, which can help you give out a great meal, but also keep your costs appropriate. So something that we're grappling with as caterers and in the event space is being reactive to prices and inflation. It's something that as a restaurant you can pivot a little bit faster and change things, but we've discovered that doing weddings especially, where often you're booking 2 years out, trying to be reactive to price points and project what something might cost can be really tricky. So, it forces us to look inwards and consider how we can, cook with some efficiency and creativity, but also give people a great thing at a price point that we can trust will be okay in a year and a half, 2 years' time. So it's certainly a challenge for our events industry, is giving someone over a price in 2 years.
Yeah, right.
And making sure you can honour it without going out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about what you said about, what you love about cooking is bringing people together and community, and obviously making people happy with your food. Is it the same thing? The things that you enjoy cooking, are they the same things that you love to eat yourself?
Yeah.
Or is that different?
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. I like to keep things pretty basic. So often there's probably a few more flourishes when we're putting on an event. But I really like that sense of kind of celebration or connectivity when you sit down with 5 or 6 people and have something shared. It's why we embrace a shared style of eating when we do events, especially in a wedding setting. And you still have people who want the alternate drop style, old school way of doing things, but I really feel like it's a great way for people, to pass a plate to someone else and strike up a conversation. And the fact that you're all eating the same thing gives you a chance to chat about that and have that shared experience. So for me, it's all about that. I mean, we've just had our birthdays and gotten away for a trip, and I caught up with some friends at Dalesford, and we got a fire going, and we all jumped on a few different things and had a big shared feast. And it's less about what we're cooking and more just about the spirit and how we're enjoying it together.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess with all that in mind, and the fact that you've come to this through a slightly different route, what would your advice be to a young person starting out in the industry?
Yeah, well, I think it has to be said that it is a tricky time in hospitality, just in terms of its reputation and how it's perceived. So I would say to people to not be put off by that, but to also have their eyes open and make sure they're being respected when they get into it. Once they're into it and they know that they're enthusiastic about it, I would just keep your eyes open and your ears open and be a sponge and learn as much as you can. And it's just as important to see people make mistakes and to see bad attitudes in the kitchen as it is to, follow the people who do things with good intentions, because it helps you to determine how you want to be and how you don't want to be. My advice is to essentially be a sponge and just to continue asking questions and don't feel silly in asking those questions. Because I had to at an age where, most of the people I was working with around me for the last 8 years, and I continue to be at this place, they'll have 10 or 15 years experience on me, and I'm not going to get anywhere if I just keep my mouth shut and don't ask questions that might feel silly, or put my hand up and say I could get better at something, but always be humble and be hungry to learn more.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Such a great chat.
Thank you so much, Jo. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Conversation with a Chef with Dan Livingstone at the Chandlery in Port Melbourne. You can check out all the beautiful photos on Instagram at thechandlery.melbourne. If you'd like to hear more stories from other chefs, I'm also on Instagram at Conversation with a Chef. And that way, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know when all of the new stories pop up. You can read this chat online at www.conversationwithachef.com, and of course you can follow me on Apple and Spotify podcasts. I would absolutely love it if you told a friend about my chats. It's still the best way to get these delicious stories out into the world. Once again, thanks so much for listening. Have a great day and bon appétit.